There we go, ready to go. So welcome everybody. Thank you for spending the next hour with us at the Ayoa Inclusive Tech for Our Time session. My name's Liz Osland. I'm going to be leading the session along with Ross McGee. I'm the Global Master Trainer with Ayoa, and Ross is the neurodivergent lead at Ayoa. And the session is all about looking at different ways to enable remote working, how you can promote innovation and also embrace diversity. So the objective of the session is for you to get a feel of how you can work collaboratively within Ayoa and see how it's an inclusive tool for all in the workplace. And as a result, hopefully appreciate the diversity of thought and non-linear ways of thinking and how that can drive innovation forward for you in the workplace. So as I said, it is quite interactive, so I'm hoping you're all going to get stuck in and enjoy the activities. So let's start then with a famous quote by Henry Ford. Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably why so few engage in it. And that's exactly what you're going to be doing in the next hour, is thinking about your thinking. So if I just ask you in your heads to recite the months of the year, go as fast as you can in your head. Probably done about now. Yeah, quite easy. Don't have to think much. You'll be able to rattle off those months of the year. What if I asked you to do exactly the same in your head, but to recite them alphabetically? Off you go. You see Tim's trying to write it down there, make it a bit easier for himself. Yeah, I'm going to stop you there because it's going to take too long. The point there is that, we're often operating in autopilot. And we're not actually thinking about our thinking. And that concept is called metacognition. And there's a great quote by a guy called Robert Frost, and he said, "The brain is a wonderful organ. It starts working the moment you get up in the morning and doesn't stop until you get into the office." Okay, bit of a joke, but it is that, we jump out of bed and we're feeling full of energy, really creative in our thinking and being quite proactive. And then we get to our office and we just automatically go into autopilot mode and reactive thinking. So metacognition is thinking about our thinking. And that is essentially what you're going to be doing through this session. Now, there is very much a culture at the moment of busyness, getting stuff done. But we would like to question, is it about getting stuff done, or is it getting it done better? Okay, now we're an amazing decision-making machine, and we would challenge you to put that level of metacognition, thinking about your thing, to say, am I doing it and getting stuff done, or is there a better way? Can I get it done better? And this is because, your ideas matter. We've been living in COVID-19 lockdown world now for near on a year. And that has thrown traditional ways of working out of the window. Some has a positives, and obviously there's negatives as well. But what that has demonstrated to us is that actually through remote working, there's some real emerging leaders coming out with throwing in ideas, being creative and innovative with the way that they are problem solving. And real star performers are starting to shine. And I think a key part of that is looking to move away from these non-linear ways of thinking, and also thinking about your teams and who within your teams may be neurodiverse. So you have that ability anyway to think in a different way. So part of your responsibility in the workplace as well is to create that safe culture where you can accept those ideas and receive the ideas, and to stay curious into a general diversity of thought, but in particularly that idea that your ideas matter. What platform are you giving to everybody to be creative and to put their ideas forward? Now, there's a really good reason why we're taking you through this and the importance of neurodiversity and creativity in the workplace. Now, I appreciate this text is a little bit small. You're not going to be able to read it, but I'll read it out for you. The World Economic Forum did some research into what are the skills needed to survive and thrive from 2022 and beyond. And the top 3 skills that came out were: number 1, analytical thinking and innovation; number 2, active learning and learning strategies; and number 3, creativity, originality, and initiative. Now, this is even before the pandemic. I would argue that these skills are needed even more now than ever. 2022 is only next year. And if I was to ask you how many hours have you studied English for, just put in the chat there, how many hours through your lifetime do you think that you've studied English for? Anyone? Put the number in there. Yeah, 100,000 for Megan, 10,000, Tim, yeah, 10,000, high numbers. What about for maths, sums? How many hours have you studied that for? About the same, 20,000 and still cut, yeah, keep going, too many. Exactly. How many hours have you studied creativity or innovation for? Pop it in the chat. 0, 2, question mark, yeah. Absolutely. We ask this question to lots of our participants when we deliver workshops all around the world, and it's consistent. 10, 20,000 for your native language and English. Ask them around creativity and innovation. It's rare to have high numbers. We're talking single digits. So the first step is well done, because you signed up to this workshop, and not only are you going to learn about how to be more inclusive with the neurodivergent workforce, but also about how to be more creative in your thinking. So you've taken the first step. By the end of this session, you will have covered off an hour. But isn't it interesting? These are the top 3 skills, yet we aren't upskilling ourselves in these areas to be equipped and prepared for the future of work. So it's very much, now more than ever, we need to move away from those traditional ways of thinking. So here we are today. I'm presenting to you in Ayoa in a mind map presenter mode, different way maybe than what you're used to in your traditional PowerPoint. And Ayoa is known to be a neuro-inclusive, collaborative digital workspace. Now, that might sound like a little bit of a mouthful, but trust me, it's actually a very simple and intuitive tool to use. And what we're going to do is actually demonstrate some of the features in Ayoa to you live, so you can see yourself how easy it is to use. So Tim, I think I saw you say there that you weren't sure if you had the link to Ayoa. So maybe if Ross could pop something in the chat there. Don't worry if you can't get on right now. You can certainly see, and then when you can log on afterwards, have another play. For those of you who have signed up to Ayoa, we're going to ask you to participate in an activity shortly. So we'll see how easy this is to actually set up. And in a moment, I'm going to hand you over to Ross. So Ross, while you just share your screen, I'll set up what the activity is, if that's okay. Good. So Ross is going to open up a whiteboard in Ayoa and share this with you. So I want you to imagine, I don't know how many of us are in the room right now, but imagine that you are a global team and you've been tasked with setting up an event for neurodiversity in the workplace. So that's your title of the event. And you don't really know where to start. So you can start by brainstorming, well, this is what I know about neurodiversity. This is what I wonder about it, maybe some of the things you don't know or you'd like to have more information on. And these are the things that I wish for, going forward into the future to embrace inclusion for all and neurodivergent workforce. Now, don't worry, this isn't a test. It's not about what you know or what you don't. This could well be a genuine exercise of, well, we're going to host this event. Let's start with us. What do we know and what we don't know? Because that's probably a good gauge for where our participants at the conference are going to be. Now, I'm presuming most of you in the UK, we are doing this remotely, but you could literally be any corner of the world. So this is an interactive whiteboard. So Ross, can I hand over to you to explain how this is actually going to work and invite the participants to join?
Yeah, of course. So thank you, Liz. Like you're saying, this is our digital whiteboard within Ayoa, and I've copied and pasted a link into the chat So for anyone who signed up with an Ayoa account prior to today, if they'd like to copy and paste that link, which is in the chat, into their own browser, they will then be able to collaborate with us in real time. So Liz has neatly set up the idea behind this whiteboard. We really want to find out a bit more about your existing knowledge about neurodiversity. It's not a test, like Liz said, but to add your own contribution, all you've got to do is go to the very top left of the whiteboard toolbar on the left of your screen here. Click on the top icon, which is a sticky note. Choose your sticky note of any shape, any size, any color. And then when you selected it, you can just drag and drop it into the right category. Type in your contribution. And then when you finish typing, just click off onto a blank space. So that would be my contribution to the whiteboard added. I'm in fact going to delete that one because I'm sure other people will have much better contributions. So I'll make space for them to throw in their own sticky notes. So yeah, please do, everyone who has signed up with an Ayoa account, just start throwing your sticky notes onto the board. Obviously, the benefit of this one means that we can all collaborate remotely, no matter where we are. And because it's digital, you're not going to run out of sticky notes. So hopefully over the next minute to 2 minutes, we'll see some contributions and we'll see where we stand with neurodiversity. And obviously, if anyone has any questions with how they can use this whiteboard, just drop them into the chat and I'll try to help you out with that too.
Lots of good use of different types of sticky notes there already, showing personal preferences. Nice. Okay, so you can see that populated nicely now. Another minute. Okay, I think just for the purpose of time, we'll wrap that up there, Ross, if that's okay. So,
Yeah,
as you can see on Ross's, yeah, that's it. If you can hold it there, that's great. Now, if your eyesight's as poor as me looking on a small screen, excuse my head, I'm just going to a bigger screen so I can actually read it. But you can see there, complete array of colours and different types of sticky notes. People can really put their own personal preferences of how they want to see this. Some great ideas coming forward. So I know neurodiversity is important for business. It probably isn't as well represented as it should be. Absolutely. We're going to cover off some of that in the session. It has something to do with dyslexia, correct? It helps with creative thinking, true, and neurodiversity helps creativity. So, you know, some similar themes already coming out for you there. So you can see how working together on this pulls those out. In terms of, I wonder, what support is being provided to neurodiverse employees in the workplace? Good question. What tools are available to help? What businesses should be doing to help? Brilliant. And in terms of, I wish, some of them was more spoken about. We knew more. that this was more universally understood. So, I mean, we've only given you 2 minutes, and look, already you've got a permanent record of your ideas for, you know, let's imagine this was a real life event that you'd been tasked to host and plan and put on. Great starting point, because if that's where you were at, as I said, most likely that's where your audience are as well. Okay, Ross?
Yeah, so it's not surprising that there's this sort of level of neurodiversity known, because in the last couple of years there has really been an explosion about neurodiversity, which has reached some people but not necessarily everyone. So whilst it has begun to be reflected more in our media, we should firstly be thinking about what is neurodiversity. So as you can see from my screen currently, like some people said, it does include dyslexia, but alongside that there are many other neurological differences such as autism, dyspraxia, ADHD, etc. And by definition, neurodiversity describes differences in cognitive functioning that affect learning, thinking, attention, and memory. So it is something which has always been with us since the dawn of time, but it's only coined as a term in the late 1980s, resulting in it often being heralded as the last great social movement of the 20th century. So whilst that is great for neurodiversity, because it came about so late into the 20th century, it does, however, mean that still very few people know much about it. And this trickles down to the disappointing fact that most companies aren't aware of it either. So, for example, in 2018, it was learned that 72% of HR professionals said that consideration of neurodiversity wasn't included in their people management practices, and 17% said that they just simply didn't know. Another staggering fact alongside that, which isn't on our whiteboard currently, is that only 16% of autistics are currently employed in the UK. So whilst we are learning more about neurodiversity and recognition of the value of it is thankfully growing, which is, as you can see, reflected in our scrapbook collection here. And if anyone does have any questions about how these images are linked to neurodiversity, just feel free to drop them into the chat and we'll get back to you as and when on them. But another good point to emphasize is that whilst more employers are beginning to hire neurodivergent talent as they learn of their ability to boost innovation and productivity, it is crucial to acknowledge and act upon the fact that neurodivergent employees require reasonable adjustments to fulfill their potential. So that's really the main reason we put this event on today, because remote working, which we've all done a bit of together already today in our whiteboard only a few moments ago, has sprung upon us far earlier than expected. Although it's done a lot of good for us in the immediate, some problems have arisen from it too, which I'm sure you've all experienced. And two of them, which are really massive, are that creativity and innovation have taken a detrimental hit. And secondly, people with neurological differences not being properly supported. So the latter is because while some organisations have begun to implement reasonable adjustments in tangible offices for neurodivergent employees, the nascent digital society which we've all hurtled into together means that new digital reasonable adjustments must be considered for people with neurological differences. And unfortunately, they are in contrast found very few and far between. So although the working from home situation sounds as though it's raising more challenges than benefits when considering neurodiversity, it shouldn't be dismissed. In fact, the unprecedented situation of society shifting to a digital realm has presented us all with an opportunity which we should seize with both hands. Because not only have lives changed, but definitions too. This is because the social model of disability says that disability is caused by the way society is organized. So the society we are now living in is in no way set in concrete. I'm sure we would all agree with that. It is in fact still forming. And if the structure of society determines disability, with a new one in creation, we have the chance to ensure that neurodivergent individuals are not placed at a disadvantage. So what we want to do is imagine forming a digital world where neuro-inclusivity is a cornerstone of it. And with that in mind, I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and hand back to Liz, because she's going to share with us all now one resource which could play a massive role in making that objective come true for the benefit of everyone.
Great, thank you. Before we carry on, are there any burning questions before we go into the next slide? Well, good. We can have questions at the end. I should have clarified that at the beginning, but I just thought before we move on to the next session, in case there are any. Okay, I'm going to re-share my screen again. So thanks for that, Ross. Really great insight into, you know, where are we at currently and some things to think about. So the last activity that you engaged with was using the whiteboard element of Ayoa. What you should be able to see on the screen now is something called a mind map. So some of you may be familiar with mind maps, for some of you this may be brand new. So I'm going to take you through a real whistle-stop tour of what a mind map is. Let me zoom in here for you. So essentially, a mind map, you always want to start with a central idea. So for example, if you were doing a mind map about yourself, a CV or you, I may decide to put a photo of my face in the centre there, or if I was hand drawing it, I'd draw a picture or something that represents me. So in lockdown, red wine. So there could be a glass of red wine there that represents me. So always start with a central idea about what the topic is that you want to mind map about. So if it's yourself, something that represents you. Now, there's some basic principles that you can apply for your mind map to be really, really effective. And when I say effective, it's effective in capturing your ideas, but also for you to make links and associations and actually help you with your memory and recall of the information that you're trying to capture within your mind map. So to start with, you want to add as much colour as you possibly can. So you can see here, we've got different branches coming out that are different colours. There's a reason for that, which I'll take you through at the moment. But it helps us to make associations and organise our thoughts. It helps us to make links and associations. Now, your brain, for example, might automatically do a red branch because that's something to do. If I say the word red to you, think in your head, pop in the chat. What do you associate the colour red with? Anything. If I say the colour red, bad, fire, yeah, urgent, danger, and it's unique to everybody. For somebody, in bad moods today, it could be love. Red could be love of the heart, yeah. So anyway, passion. There we go. Thank you. But you know, you'll associate certain feelings, emotions with certain colours, and that might naturally come out on your map. But it's about adding colour. Now, the next thing you need to remember in your map is that you are adding branches. So all these coming out here are called branches. Now the ones on the screen here, you can see are nice and curved and organic. So if you are near a window and you look out and you're fortunate enough to have any trees around you, you'll see that those trees themselves are curved, radiant and organic. Everything stems back to the trunk, which is essentially your central image, and everything is connected, associated and branches off from that central image. If I asked you in nature, can you put in the chat, is there anything in nature that is straight? Purely straight. Is there anything in nature that is straight? Not really, Maria says. Not that I know of. Light, yeah, somebody always says light, but that's to the human eye, as is lots of people often say the horizon as well. But unless you're Flat Earth Society, we know that the Earth is round, and therefore, again, it's the perception of us thinking. So in nature, there is nothing that is straight. And with a mind map, it's capturing the essence of your thoughts. And we love to reflect what we see in nature, and everything in nature is curved and organic. So it's great to be able to replicate that in your mind maps. You also can add words onto your mind map. Now, what you want to do is put the word on top of the branch. So if I asked you, for anybody who does studying or does lots of research, taking lots of notes, let's say you were sitting listening to a teacher or a lecturer, no doubt you had your lined paper with a pen and furiously writing notes away, capturing everything that the teacher or the lecturer was saying. Then when you're reflecting on those notes, you probably got a highlighter pen and highlighted the keywords and maybe underlined them as well, and maybe even transferred those onto a little card for what the key notes were. Now, if you look, this is what the mind map is already doing for you. By having a word sitting on top of a branch that is coloured, you cut out all of that time. You're thinking about what that keyword is, sits on the branch, is underlined, it's highlighted because it's in a colour. So it's a much more efficient way of capturing ideas, thoughts, and information that you're hearing. And when you're putting the words, they want to stretch roughly the same length as the branch and sit on top. If the words are floating off, then your brain can't quite remember that association back to that branch. The other thing we want to do is add images. So just like with your word, it's up to you. It's whatever comes into your brain first. If it's a picture that is your thought, draw the picture, or a symbol. If it's the word, put the word. If you need both, you can add both. Now, Ayoa lets you be as creative as you want to. You can attach images from an idea bank, image bank, or you can freehand sketch. You can see there we've got symbols. So a lot of maps that I might share in the workplace, I don't need to write finances budget. I can just do a pound sign. You know, you can start coming up with universal symbols for your ways of working. Again, really efficient, saving you loads of time. And then, believe it or not, there is a form of structure in your mind map. And what the mind map is doing is putting it into what's called a basic ordering of ideas. Now, the software will automatically do this for you, but if I asked you after this workshop, grab a piece of paper, follow these principles and draw a mind map about yourself using curved branches, colour, add a word, add an image, I'm pretty sure 90% of you, if you are right-handed, if it was a clock, your first branch would come out at about 1 o'clock, your second branch 2 or 3 o'clock, and you would go around clockwise that way. If you're left-handed or from the Arabic world writing the other way, you would probably start at 11 o'clock and go round the other way. Your brain is, without even thinking about it, ordering your mind map in a structure which is level of importance. That first branch that comes out is the first most important thing you think of related to that topic. So when I zoom back out of this, you can see, you know, they say that images are worth 1,000 words. The mind map, when it's complete, even with words on it, is still an image. So in particular for dyslexic people, people who are neurodiverse, this is a fantastic way, in a non-linear way, to capture thoughts, be able to communicate, jot all their ideas down. If you do want to know more about mind mapping and how to mind map effectively, there's lots more information on the Ayoa website. And I appreciate that was a real whistle-stop tour into mind mapping 101, but it's an opportunity to practice the metacognition, think about our thinking and say, traditionally, I would take a black pen on lined paper. What if I gave this a go and I did it in mind mapping? What are the different results that I'm going to see? So that's my challenge for you post the workshop. Give it a go and see what those results are. Now, as I said, there are lots of benefits to mind mapping. And also it has been stamped by the British Dyslexia Association and also the Student Allowance Scheme for England as a software tool for supporting disabled people. So I'm going to hand you over to Ross now, because I've shown you how to mind map, but Ross is going to show you now a lot more features within the mind map and how this actually supports with reasonable adjustments in the workplace.
Okay, thanks, Liz. So I'm just going to open up another mind map and I'm going to run with the example that we were actually going to carry on to create a neurodiversity awareness event, because you'll see that this mind map is themed upon that topic. It covers everything from our marketing all the way through to our logistics, and you'll see that it spans out to see that we're going to include pizza on the menu during our event, for example. But whilst Liz was saying that mind maps are a great way for people with dyslexia and other neurological differences to work via, this mind map could in fact still be improved for people who are neurodivergent. So just to share with you a few adjustments which can enhance this way of working even further for people with neurological differences, I'm going to show you them now. First of all, you'll notice that we've got a stark white background. going on in this mind map, which is notoriously not very good for people with dyslexia. So we do have the ability to select from a range of different pastel colors, including the very popular creamy mellow yellow, which I've just selected now. Another thing which would be of help to people with neurological differences is something called the idea bank, which I've just activated. And this is because it enables everyone to safely store their ideas, which might not be immediately relevant to their mind map, but could hold maybe value at a later time. So for people with neurological differences who don't always think linearly, but instead sporadically and outside the box to form brilliant ideas, this is a savior of a feature. Because when the time is right, they can find their idea from the idea bank, which has been storing it safely for them, and then just drag and drop it onto wherever they want. And as you can see, it's generated itself down the bottom there where I asked it to. And finally, another really big pair of considerations to keep in mind is that of font and distractions. So the former we have managed to address by ensuring that the font used throughout Ayoa is a dyslexic friendly one called Open Sans. And for helping to minimize distractions, you'll notice that when I click on the base of any branch, a collapse button appears. And by clicking on this, it will immediately condense what I'm looking at within my mind map. So for someone who might be overwhelmed with the amount of work which they have going on, this is a really useful feature. And also for people with ADHD in particular, because it reduces the distractions straight away. So they are just a massive digital reasonable adjustments available solely when you're mind mapping, which are really good for people with neurological differences. But a more general one to highlight is that of how you communicate. And this is because for people with neurological differences, it shouldn't be presumed that communicating in a standard way such as Zoom is or isn't the best way to do so. Generally, for people with dyslexia, the shift to remote working sent alarm bells ringing because it inevitably meant a further reliance upon digital devices and less face-to-face interaction, the result being more text to contest with. So for them, having an alternative to emails like Zoom is therefore really important. But if we think generally about autism, yet again, a shift to remote working probably caused some concern, not least when its change was so immediate and necessary. This is because with autism, there is a tend to like for structure, and people with autism aren't usually as adept at enacting what might be classed as social norms. So with the world turning upside down last year and everyone being forced to communicate in a new way where social norms flew out the window and were replaced by new ones, utilizing something such as Zoom could be a nightmare for someone with autism. So whilst communication might be a necessary ingredient for any successful team, it is important to ensure that it comes in variations, as it's only as good as how it's applied. When working with colleagues, do therefore consider that 1 in 7 people are neurodivergent, so it is likely that you do work with somebody who is, meaning that you should make various modes of communication available as options, and firstly, have a conversation about how is best to communicate in the first place. And that's why in Ayoa, we have our Ayoa chat on the left here, and you'll see that we can have group chats, which I'm just opening up. You can also have private chats with individuals. If you click onto any branch, there is a comment section for you just to discuss that branch. And in our tasks and project management side of things, we have a comment section per task also. And you'll also see that in our group chat, there's a video icon, meaning that either via Zoom or our own video conferencing functionality, you can have some face-to-face communication if needed. Now, as you might have noticed when I've been going through some digital reasonable adjustments, the content of this mind map isn't the most imaginative. Like, we've just decided to have pizza on the menu. We haven't got anything more fancy than that. So it's not going to set the world alight. But today's workshop is not only about neurodiversity, it's also about creativity. And that means I'm going to hand back to Liz now for another activity which you can all get involved with. And this one's going to be about creative thinking.
Great, thank you very much, Ross. So hopefully you've all got a bit more insight now into mind maps. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again, and you should all see some paper clips on here. But hopefully we've got enough people in the group that have signed up to Ayoa, so you're going to be able to participate in this session live. On the top right hand side here, you can see that I've got something called public on. So in here, I've given you some rights, and we're going to copy that link and I'm going to add it into the chat. Okay, so for those of you that have signed up, what I'd like you to do is click on that link, and it should take you automatically to the map that you can see on the screen. If you can't, don't worry. What I'd suggest is grab a piece of old-fashioned pen and paper, and you can do this activity anyway. If you can't access the public, but you are in Ayoa, then you can just create your own mind map. So I'm hoping we're going to have a few willing volunteers. I'm going to add a branch on here, and how you do that is simply, you can see there's a green circle here with a plus sign, and I'm going to set up this now, so you should all see uses on there. Okay, in the chat, could I just have some people saying I'm joining the session, just so we know who's going to participate in this activity, please? Great, Louise is joining. Brilliant. Megan, a couple of other people. Tim, fab. Okay, what I would like you to do is on that branch there where it says uses, click and just add your name, just like that. So that's all I want you to do for now, please. So this style of mind map you can see is slightly different. It's a different view. And this is where the power of the Ayoa mind map comes in, is that there's so many different views. You can pick what works for you. Oh, super, we've got loads of people joining in. Okay. And if you're not on the mind map, as I said, grab a piece of pen and paper. I'm going to click something over here and I'll explain what it is afterwards. Brainstorm solo mode on, and I'm going to stop sharing. So can I just have a thumbs up in the chat for those of you that are live in the Ayoa map? Can you now only see my name and your own name? You should only be able to see your own name, and yeah, awesome. Okay, so we're good to go. Right, I'm going to give you exactly 2 minutes, and by clicking the plus arrow off your name, I'd like you to add as many uses that you can think of for a paperclip. Off you go. How many uses can you think of for a paperclip? Okay, 2 minutes is up, so I want you to stop there. For those of you who have interacted and those playing at home on pen and paper, just jot down in chat, don't say what they are, just count up. How many ideas did you have for uses of a paperclip? 4, 6, 5, 10, 8, 2, Yeah, mainly single figures. Okay. We've done this all around the world. It's actually quite a famous universal test. And the average is around 9 to 12 for the use of paper clips. So you're about there, 3 to 8, 9 to 12 is global average. Anything over 16 is rare to actually come up with uses of a paper clip. Now, you notice that I clicked something called Brainstorm Solo On. So for those of you actually interacting live in the software, you can see me because I created the map, and all you can see is your own ideas. Now, I'm going to share the screen for everybody in a moment, but for those who are using it live, I'm now going to click Brainstorm Solo Off, and just like magic, you should be able to see the entire group. Is that right? See everybody's ideas there now. Right, let me share the screen for those who can't see that. Okay, so for those of you who weren't involved, you can see here we've got some fantastic contributions. Huge map, brilliant, loads and loads of ideas. Now you can add in the chat there, why do you think that I clicked the function which was called Brainstorm Solo Mode and you could only see you couldn't see any of this other stuff that was going on? Why do you think I clicked that button? Any ideas? You can either unmute yourself and shout it out or add it in the chat. Megan's saying not to be influenced by those ideas you don't see, not copying, not confrontational, so your ideas are original and prevent us from being influenced. So in case you're lacking in confidence, it's too distracting. Absolutely all those reasons. A big reason why brainstorming fails, and you'll have been involved in this yourself, old school days, I booked out the boardroom for an hour, off you go, over there, we've got a problem, you've got to solve it. And you'd sit around and it'd always be the same people who had the confidence to be vocal, maybe somebody who's a bit more senior, and they say, well, my idea is, and then everybody just thinks that they should go along with it because they don't want to rock the boat or the culture doesn't allow them to question that idea. Also, you hear other people's ideas and then you go down that same track. The beauty of using this mode with the mind map and the brainstorm mode on is everything you've just said. Every single person has the opportunity to contribute their ideas. And if anybody joined Chris's session yesterday, you have learned a little bit more about this. And if you didn't see Chris Griffiths' session on creativity and making better decisions, I highly recommend that you go and check that out. A lot of the thinking and the metacognition thinking that we're taking you through today is from Chris's book, The Creative Thinking Handbook, and I'll give you some more information about that at the end. But it removes the bias, it allows you to contribute with clarity without being biased of other people's thinking. But particularly if you're neurodivergent, it's a way that you can just collate your ideas and be inclusive in that whole process. Okay, so I'm going to ask you now to do a very similar thing. I'm going to add a branch over the other side. And this time you will see it says non-uses. Okay, what I'd like you to do, just as before, don't start the activity just yet. Just add your name to the branch that says non-uses. And while you're doing that, let's have a look at what some of the uses were. You can use it for an earring, picture hanger, daisy chain, toothpick. Hooking something together. Yeah, some great ideas there. Okay, so add your name over there, non-uses. Okay, and again, I'm going to click Brainstorm Solo Mode on. You'll only be able to see yourself and Ross and I who created it. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing because otherwise you'll see mine with everything. I'm going to give you 2 minutes again. This time you need to come up with as many ideas as you can of non-uses of a paperclip, what you can't use a paperclip for. Off you go. Okay, 2 minutes is up. Again, if you just want to add up, not saying what they are yet, how many ideas did you come up with? Drop it in the chat. Bit higher this time. 8, 5, 4, 13, 10, 9. Yeah, generally, whenever we run this, it's slightly higher numbers than the uses. And that's because often we can get in, it's easier to think in a negative mindset than it is in a positive one, bizarrely. So usually, yeah, you do come up with a few more ideas when we do this activity. Okay, what I'm going to do is pick some over here. So what have we got? You can't eat food with it. You can't brush your hair. You can't use a paperclip as a wallet or as trousers. You can't use it for picking your nose. You can't use it to feed your pet. Make a cup of tea. Some absolutely fantastic ideas there. Okay, I am going to pick. Let me have a look. What have we got down here? You can't use it for pumping air in a bike. Okay, I'm going to take that one. Pumping air in a bike. Pumping air in a bike. And with permission, I am going to ask Tim, Louise, Daniel, and Robert, if that's okay. I'm just limiting numbers because I'm conscious of time. So Robert, Louise, Tim, and who did I say? Sorry. There's a couple of you there. What I'd like you to do, you can unmute yourself and imagine now, you know, that you're this global team again, having to solve a problem. So for those of you that are participating, you can unmute yourself. I'm going to move this out of the way for you, so you've got a bit more room. You don't have to put your name this time, but just verbalize how, I want you to imagine that you're the Cambridge Debating Society and the rest of us are Oxford. And you've got to debate and show to us how you can use a paperclip to pump air in a bike. So what I'd like you to do is add your ideas, and you can actually talk to each other about it. That'd be great. So we've got Daniel there, we've got Tim, got Louise. If there's a couple of others that want to jump in as well, that'd be great. So off you go, have a chat, verbalise, add your ideas, and any idea has to go down.
Okay, we can assume that the paperclip is very large, so we can melt it and build a pump to pump air into a bike. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
like
All
that.
ideas have to go down, Daniel, so add it in.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, melt it and then.
We
If there
use
was-
it to make a hole to pump up, and then we could like fill it up again, possibly.
Yeah, so we pierce the inner tube with it.
Yeah.
And then blow into it and then seal it. Yeah, okay. And if we could stick lots of them together so that it sort of forms some sort of a cone that we could blow into to direct. So we're sort of creating something that we could blow. Who's typing in there?
You can add as well if you want, Tim.
Sorry?
You can add as well to the map. That's great.
Where can I add?
So can you see pumping air in a bike?
Yeah.
Yellow one, yeah, straight on there.
I'm trying to click on it, but am I? Maybe it's because I'm watching it on this. All right, I need to go. I need to go into the. I need to leave it here, and I need to go into the actual.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry, that's why I couldn't do it. Here we go. Oh, it's not
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, these are all really good questions, like what is the paperclip made of? How many do we have? Because that would change things. We'd have way more possibilities, the more paperclips we have.
I don't seem to be in the whiteboards online, unfortunately.
Okay, don't worry. Maybe Daniel and Louise can.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah, I can add it for you. Can you remind me what you wanted to add?
I was saying sort of making some sort of a cone, putting a number of them together and making some sort of a cone that you could then blow down to drive air into the tube, into the inner tube.
Awesome.
Added that for you.
Okay. Okay, so again, I think for purpose of time that we'll close that off there, but no doubt if I'd given you more time, you'd have come up with more ideas. But what this has shown already is we had an idea that pumping air into a bike, you know, was not a use for a paperclip. And all of a sudden, we've just got 3 people from, you know, three corners of the country collaborating live on a mind map saying, well, actually, if we challenge our thinking, if we practice metacognition, if we move away from the traditional linear ways of thinking, actually, we might be able to come up with some ideas. So assumptions were binned there, you know, a sense of, well, what's it actually made out of? You know, could we melt it? Could we pierce a hole and then pop up? Absolutely. All these suggestions and ideas are possible. And I think it just proves that when we really practice this idea of metacognition, it's getting into a mindset of anything is possible. And if I take you back to 1928, Alexander Fleming had his little research workshop, and he'd gone off for a holiday in the August, and it was a really, really hot summer, and he left some Petri dishes in the windows. And when he came back, he realized that mold was growing in the Petri dishes. And as it did, it was attacking something called Staphylococcus and actually swallowing it up, and not with other bacteria that was in the plate. Now that led to the production of penicillin. But if somebody had said to you, mold is going to save millions of lives around the world, you wouldn't have believed it. So it's about getting into a mindset of anything is possible and really thinking about our thinking. So with that, I'm going to pass you over to Ross. Let me stop sharing my screen. So you've seen different functions now within Ayoa. We've taken you through a whiteboard, and you've done some brainstorming live for an event, neurodiversity in the workplace. You've seen how you can change that view within the mind map to make sure that reasonable adjustments are accommodated, with Ross showing you different background colours and things. You've had a play live in how to use mind mapping for collaboration and generating ideas and removing the bias. So Ross is going to take you through now. Imagine that that event that we were planning, neurodiversity in the workplace, you know, we're almost at like that planning project management end of it. So over to you, Ross.
Thanks, Liz. So yeah, hopefully following that last paperclip activity, we now experience some better ways of coming up with creative thinking. And whilst you might be able to generate better ideas by thinking more creatively, you actually want to make sure that you go ahead and action them, so you actually turn them into something tangible. So when you get to the project management stage of a project like we might be in now, you've also got to make sure that that step is also neuro-inclusive, not just the creative stage, not just the collaboration, but also the final project management. So what we have open here is an Ayoa task board themed on our Pretend Neurodiversity Awareness event. And basically a task board in Ayoa is a collaborative space where everyone comes together to create, share, update, and ultimately complete their tasks. And although it is essentially the project management section of Ayoa, being the neuro-inclusive collaborative digital workspace, it does differ from other pieces of project management. So straight away, you'll notice that we have something which you might not expect when considering project management. It's extremely visual, it's bright, and I dare say maybe even bordering on fluid, because I can drag and drop my tasks into different categories if I so wish. But for certain, it is anything but rigid. So for someone with maybe dyslexia or another neurological difference, this would be a really refreshing format to be faced with. It gives them an aerial view of how they can organize their tasks, and they can see it in a very visual nature. The visual aspects of this project management does, however, continue when we click onto a task to add the task details to it. Because on the right here, I'm faced with a side panel, meaning I can add people to the task, update the start date, etc., even leave comments on task. But a really good feature to emphasize from a neurodiversive perspective is that of the progress bar. Because if I slide this along to, let's say, 50%, you'll notice that I get a proportionate ring going halfway around my task. So this means that just from at a glance, your colleagues can understand how everything is moving along, And with no words required, it means no chance for anything being lost in communication. So it's brilliant as a feature whilst you're remote working, because you can just see it at a glance. But it's also particularly beneficial for people with neurological differences because you're not relying on words. Similarly, just below the progress bar, we've included something called the importance and urgency scales, which are another pair of visual indicators. So if I click on the lightning strike and then the orange box, that would result in an orange lightning strike, maybe symbolizing that something is mildly urgent. Or if I was to click on the flag and the red box, that would indicate that something's very important. So yet again, it's very bold, it's very colorful, it appears on your task nice and clearly. It visually highlights what is and what isn't a priority with no words being needed whatsoever. So this view which we're currently in is very visual and might be good for people with neurological differences, but neurodiversity also includes those who aren't neurodivergent. It also includes people who don't have neurological differences, so people who are called neurotypical. And because neurodiversity includes everyone, we do have other ways of formatting your tasks, which means that if I go to the very top right here, I can in fact switch to something called the workflow, which is a more traditional linear list way of working. My internet seems to be lagging a little bit, but there we go. As you can see, we've got all of our tasks now in a different format. And I can even move across to a Gantt timeline, which is obviously very time orientated. So we have managed to ensure that everyone can work in a style which is best for them. You might, however, be wondering about what happens when you all come together to collectively work in a task board. What if you've got someone wanting to work in the canvas, another one wanting to work in the list style? Well, if we imagine we are all in the same task board together, just because I've currently got it open in the canvas, that wouldn't dictate that you've all got to see it in the canvas. I could have it open in the canvas, Tim could have it open in the Gantt timeline, Liz could have it open in the workflow, all of us collaborating together in real time, but seeing it in a view which was best for us individually, which is obviously for the benefit of not only just yourself, but the overall team. So they're just a few digital considerations to consider when you're actually project managing tasks. And another really good one to finally mention is the My Planner section of Ayoa, which I'm just opening. This is formatted in a way with the categories of now, next, and soon, as you can see. And these are taken from the Pictorial Exchange communication system, which is used with people with autism and Asperger's at a very young age to help them think about literally what it says on the tin, what they're doing now, next, and soon. So it's familiar to them, but it's also really beneficial for anyone who's wanting to manage their overall workload. So I know that we're coming to the end of our time today, so I'm just going to hand back to Liz now, who I think is going to wrap up everything which we've been talking about.
Ross, do you just want to stay on the productivity circle?
Okay.
And we'll just, not in the presenter mode, we'll just keep it as a whole, I think, and just wrap up with that. That'd be great.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing which we were going to quickly introduce you to at the end of today was the productivity circle. It basically highlights how creativity can in fact be a source to lead to better productivity, and also how neurodiversity is a catalyst for both creativity and productivity. So in the past, we've seen methods of working such as Ford, Blockbuster, Kodak, not wanting to innovate, not wanting to change their style of working, which has in the long run been detrimental to themselves. And you'll see on the right here, they've been superseded by newer companies such as Netflix and Canon. So that was really taking you around the productivity circle, showing how taking time to think creatively and innovate can in fact lead to better productivity in the long run. And the final thing which we really wanted to note was that big companies in the present day right now, such as SAP, JP Morgan, and Hewlett Packard Enterprise, they've all got their own neurodiversity schemes. So they're encouraging their hiring neurodivergent talent, and they're also making sure that reasonable adjustments are in place to get the most out of them. And as a result, they're seeing 90% retention rate, work getting done 48% faster, and their neurodivergent teams being 30% more productive. Obviously, measuring creativity is a little bit more difficult compared to productivity, but nevertheless, neurodiversity is renowned for bolstering creativity too. So by thinking of the concept of the productivity circle, which we like to say is fueled by creativity and enhanced by neurodiversity, you can really see how neurodiversity is a factor which makes good business sense at the end of the day for anyone who's looking to become more innovative and more productive.
Ross, are you okay just to let me share my screen just to wrap up there? That'd be great. Thank you. Yeah. So conscious of time, you've got other sessions to go to. So we'll just leave you this. As Ross said, there's lots more information out there in the sense of, companies that haven't survived because they haven't embraced creativity and innovation. Some of them mentioned there quickly by Ross, and those that are embracing it and the difference that's making, as Ross said, allowing that diversity of thought, inclusion leads to creativity. It's going to save you time, it's going to help you be more productive, which in turn then allows you to be more innovative. So you've got a choice to make the right choices going forward. Think about how you can foster that innovation thinking, the metacognition thinking about your thinking, and those skills that are needed for future of work. Embrace remote working tools. We're going to shout Ayoa, obviously there's others available, but you can see now all the different functions within Ayoa and how that can support you. And remember, be inclusive. Tap into those untapped talents and support your neurodivergent workforce, and actually have a legal obligation to do that, and also ensure that those reasonable adjustments are in place. So I'd like to say a massive thank you for all of you spending an hour with us, and in particular those people who engaged in the live activities. Awesome work there, and you showed how easy it is to use. Any questions you have, I think we can stay on for a couple of minutes before the room's locked. If not, please do get in touch with the team at support@ayoa.com, and lots more information on our website in terms of blogs, case studies and how-to. So thank you very much, and thank you to Innovate UK for hosting us as well. Natasha, back over to you, I think.